Hello and welcome to the Voice of Rio Grande. I'm Craig Klein from Rio Grande Community College, and I'm the Dean of Community College Program there. And I'd like to welcome you to the program. Joining me today is Dr. Mark Nutter, who is the Vice President for Academic Affairs at Washington State Community College. And we're going to be talking about some of the many ways our Southeast Ohio region helps serve the needs of students, particularly when it comes to transferring into or out of area schools. Thank you.
Very glad to be here today.
I'm happy you joined us. I understand that you have been working on a grant that is known as Transfer to Degree Guarantee. Transfer to Degree Guarantee. So if I transferred somewhere, something would be a certainty for me?
Yes, I think the idea is in Ohio that we want to make sure that a student who takes credit at one institution can take that credit to whatever other institution in Ohio and have it applied to the degree. In the past, there's sometimes been situations where students will earn credit and they'll take the credit, but it actually doesn't help them get to their degree, at least not all of it. A portion of it may just go into an elective credit. So the idea is to get as much of that credit that goes directly to completing the degree at the transfer institution to have a seamless experience for the student.
Okay. So as someone who once upon a time transferred from one school to another, suddenly classes that counted for my major were all electives. And I found myself taking courses again, so this would be a welcome thing.
Exactly.
Help me understand one thing, though. If I'm going from one state school or college or university or community college to another, and I'm taking I'm taking what we would generally refer to as the generals, or general education classes, right. Speech, math, English, those sorts of things, maybe history, psychology. If I'm transferring a class that has essentially or exactly the same name to another school, why go to all this bother to categorize and make lengthy presentations when, if we're all doing the same thing for the same type of institution, why doesn't it just go?
That's a very good question. I think sometimes bureaucracy can get in the way. Okay. And so we all are independent institutions. We're all in Ohio. But at the same time, we all have our own governing systems. We have our own admissions departments, and things can go awry sometimes. So a college can say, oh, well, you've had psychology, but you haven't had our psychology. We know how to do that in a different way than most schools in Ohio, and therefore we think that you need to retake this course. So Ohio has said that's a good idea, but at the same time there should be good portability of courses, and so they've created something for general education courses called the transfer module. And I think this is a great way to level the playing field for students. So each college who has, which has a general psychology class, for example, they submit their course to a state panel. And that panel then reviews the course and makes sure that it's in alignment with a state standard for that course. And if it isn't, they'll send it back and they'll say you need to make these tweaks to it, etc., until it gets to the point where it receives that stamp of approval as a transfer module course. With that stamp of approval, then it should transfer without question among all of the state colleges and universities in Ohio, and really among the privates as well for the most part, although there's less guarantee with private institutions because they're not necessarily governed completely by the state requirements and regulations.
Okay. So what if we have an institution that just simply says, we need you to tweak this, and they simply say no? What happens?
Well, what happens then is that course at that institution is not a transfer module course, and therefore it's not guaranteed for the student. And that's really up to the institution then to say to the student, yeah, we have this course, but we cannot guarantee that it's going to transfer to other state colleges and universities. You need to know that up front. And some colleges and universities choose to do that simply because they feel that that course is really important to their curriculum and to what they're doing at their institution and the way they develop their general education. But it is up to that institution to inform students of that.
So about how many courses would there be in the transfer module?
Well, that depends for each institution how many courses that they have. The transfer module is actually quite large with courses at the general education level, but not every college or university has all of the courses that are available to match with. I think at Washington State we have about, I think it's around 130 courses that have this transfer module approval.
All right. So from the time I would begin from a given community college, such as Rio Grande, to the time when I know that all the material I have submitted might be approved, how long is this? Is this just a couple of months, or are we into a multi-year process?
Typically not. You would, the state has also designed a way for transfer credit between institutions electronically. And so your credit would be sent to a different institution. Say if someone from Rio Grande Community College decided they wanted to come to Washington State Community College, would be transferred electronically, reviewed, and if those courses are in the transfer module, or a step beyond that is the transfer assurance guide, which actually gets into the courses in the major that student wants to complete, then those should be posted to the transcript as meeting those requirements, go directly into that college's degree audit system, and show that student has made that progress toward degree.
So bottom line for me as a potential student at either of our schools, I'm looking at something that will help me, searching for a word, seamlessly transfer?
Right.
Okay, I think is the language.
It is.
And will facilitate my being able to really make informed choices and go anywhere I want, as long as other schools are participating.
Right.
Where I'm going is participating in the same thing that we're doing here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and the state actually is in the law that state colleges and universities must participate in this, and the Ohio Department of Higher Education is very proactive in requiring colleges to participate. So they will actually look at your catalog of courses, and if they see a course in there that they think is a match, they'll contact you and say, we see that you have this course, developmental psychology, for example. You need to submit that for a match. And then the institution will do that.
All right.
So it's a proactive system, and I don't think a week goes by that I don't get some type of an email from the Ohio Department of Higher Education that they are enlarging this system with new courses and new matches outside of the transfer module into the transfer assurance guides. Those are course matches specifically for major areas. And then also into the career and technical area. And there's another set of courses there called CTAGs, or Career Technical Assurance Guides. And those get into the more technical types of courses that are available, particularly at community colleges.
All right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Let's take a look at the schools that are a part of the Transfer to Guarantee grant that you have written and applied for. Okay, there's your logo.
Right, Washington State.
Okay, and then
Belmont College.
Belmont College, here's some others, Eastern Gateway. In our region, Zane, Rio Grande, Hockey, and then the next, there we go, the Ohio Transfer to Degree Guarantee Grant. So they're the ones who are involved in this.
Right.
And they are located in this southeast region.
They are. And they're located across the region, which I think is really excellent, because what we're trying to do here is use these colleges as a core group to invite in other colleges and universities in southeastern Ohio to come together in a summit meeting.
Okay.
And the idea here is we already have transfer working well in southeastern Ohio, but we can always make things better. And so we want to come together and say what is working, what isn't working.
Okay.
So that we get to a point where when we have a student who's transferring, we can do a handoff. And say this student is coming to Rio Grande, they want to major in this subject area, and there's someone at Rio Grande who kind of takes them by the hand and moves them on into that program.
Very good. So we also have a slide with the purposes, which I'm sure will be a good summary of what you just said.
Sure.
So what we're doing, of course, is trying to create an environment in this whole region more conducive to transfer, improve our graduation rates. So an outcome that many people may not anticipate or might not occur to them at first is that if you can transfer with minimal hassle, you're far more likely to complete your degree.
You are.
Because you're not having to take things that you feel like you've already had in some fashion. And we have long-term positive effects. Community, we can reduce student debt because people are not taking classes that are similar in nature to ones they've already had, so that's efficiency for them. And ultimately, we can strengthen the local workforce.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, two of the metrics that are looked at with this is time to degree, the amount of time it takes to complete the degree, and then also credit hours to degree. So if a degree is 120 credit hours, you don't want a student completing 180 credit hours to get there with a lot of extra credit, which also means indebtedness, right?
It does.
Because they're going to have many times financial aid or loans that's paying for those additional credit hours that really weren't required for them to get the degree.
So that, yes, that also delays them from entering the workforce.
It does.
Or starting any kind of a meaningful career.
And the longer they have toward degree, the greater the chance that something will intervene in their lives and they will not finish, because life happens and there's all kinds of things that can cause someone to stop out, and if they stop out, unfortunately chances are good that they won't start in again.
That's right. And if I think I'm correct, the last time I looked, I haven't seen something that would be called a Bachelor of General Ed
Not really.
courses for people who accumulate half again as many hours as they need.
There are some ways to do that through individualized degrees, but the problem with those types of degrees is often they're not very marketable.
No, I didn't think
And
so.
so you have to have really some type of specialization for you to have a marketable skill out in the world these days.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with that, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with more of the Voice of Rio Grande after this. Hi, and welcome back to the Voice of Rio Grande. I'm Craig Klein, the Dean of Community College Programming at Rio Grande Community College. And I'm joined today by Dr. Mark Nutter, who is the Vice President for Academic Affairs at Washington State Community College. It occurs to me we haven't said where that is.
It's in Marietta, Ohio.
Okay, not so far from here at all.
No.
Just up the river.
That's right.
And we are talking about ways we can help our Southeast Ohio region serve the needs of students, particularly when transferring. So we're going to move on now to something called Tech Prep. And we have a slide that talks about Tech Prep, and take a look at that. So comment on this if you would, please.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there are various types of education, and one of those is technical education. Career and technical is something that leads students into technical fields. And the number of careers out in the world that require a technical skill are increasing all the time, and they're because of just the nature of the types of equipment that is required out in the workplace, which is constantly getting more complex. And so in the technical fields, students often start that training while they are in high school, particularly in career and technical centers. The state has said if they're learning this skill set, particularly if it's a skill set attached to a nationally recognized credential, then why should they go on to college and then repeat that same training again when they already have achieved the credential? So with College Tech Prep, it does the job of leveling the curriculum between the college program and the high school program so that the high school program is brought up to the college standard, and after completing the high school program, those students are able to transfer on into the college program, taking with them a number of college credits already. So they're not repeating the coursework, and they can get a jump start on completing the college degree.
So to randomly pick a field, welding.
Right.
And whether I studied welding in my high school or whether I went to a career and technical center, and we have several in our region, including one not very far from where we're sitting right now, that credit would transfer over and lead to either certificate or maybe even into a degree itself, or
Right.
both?
Yeah, just like before when we were talking about the transfer module and the tags processes where colleges had to submit their curriculum to a state panel to be approved. The same thing happens with tech prep, and with involved in tech prep are also the C-tags I mentioned earlier, the Career and Technical Assurance Guides, so that the high schools have to demonstrate that their curriculum, or the career centers, it could be high school or career center, have to demonstrate that their curriculum is at the correct level, is meeting the correct objectives for that particular course. Once that's demonstrated and the college has a matching course, then those are either leveled through the Career and Technical Assurance Guides or through another process called a CTE 26, but essentially make sure that the curriculum matches at each institution.
So if I'm reading between the lines, can a person be a high school student at a career center,
Right.
and such as the one near us where we are now, Buckeye Hills,
Right.
and also be a college student simultaneously?
They wouldn't be a college student, but they would be directly connected with a college program in the sense that they would know these credits transfer to this particular school, and that they are going to be able to apply them toward a degree, or could be a one-year certificate as well.
Okay. The slide we're looking at right now talks about, this came from the Tech Prep site. For students of all ages, does that mean all ages outside of high school?
Well, there's also the adult career side,
Okay.
and Tech Prep works primarily with the high school age side, but there is certainly connection as well with the adult career side. They have similar programs, like say welding again, and those programs and the adult career side can be again matched through the C-tag process, so that those students, even though they're not attending a college program, they can apply that toward college credit, and again be that much closer to getting a college certificate or degree.
Sure. And it also strikes me that while one may be pursuing an associate's degree of some sort, whether it's technical studies or associate of science or applied science, they may also probably be getting a certificate along the way. So there's a contingency for people who want to stop out,
Exactly.
as it were, so they would still receive some formal recognition that they've completed part of a course of study, larger course of study. So that's good.
Yeah, the state looks at it as a pathway or a highway with on-ramps and off-ramps. So
this is the interstate.
Exactly.
analogy.
And so you can use the Tech Prep program as an on-ramp into a pathway toward a degree. And actually the pathways go beyond the associate degree. They go into the bachelor's degree, many times on up to the master's degree, so that a student can find a pathway to get them where they're going. But it's also recognized that they may not do that all at the same time. They may get a certificate, they may go out into the world of work for a while, and then come back, but there's an on-ramp for them when they come back.
That's great. You know, it strikes me that we increasingly live in the age of the skilled technician, which I'm not sure was the case when I was an undergraduate back in the day. But if I knew that with 2 years or less of training, I could be making a salary that took me 10 years as a college professor to reach, I think that would be an amazing thing. How do parents feel about these things?
I think parents, I think they feel very good about it, but it is a little bit of a problem in making sure that they're informed, because we use a lot of education-ese, and unfortunately that doesn't always make a lot of sense to parents or to students. So part of what we need to be doing constantly is explaining how these pathways work, how students can get into programs. This is our diesel technology program at Washington State.
So they're standing in front of a big rig?
They are standing in front of, a big diesel truck, which those students learn how to repair. And the amount of computer technology, for example, that's present in those trucks these days is just absolutely, incredible.
Okay, let's take a look at this one for a
Sure.
moment. So same general area,
Right.
slightly different angle. What is the large red object behind the computer? back in the background?
The large red object is actually a diesel truck engine.
Okay.
We have those engines on what we call test stands so that the engine can be run outside of the truck. It allows students to get around them and see them. Actually, they have to tear them down and put them back together, and part of their grade is, does it start once it's put back together? So it's good experience for them. We also are able to, we have a dynamometer which allows us to hook those engines up and test them under load. They actually pump water that simulates a truck going up a hill, for example.
Okay. Is this the object where the tires sit on rollers on the floor?
That's actually a chassis dynamometer,
okay.
And that's used more with cars. And
okay.
it allows us to put a car on there and actually run it like 120 miles an hour, the equivalent
and hope
of that.
it stays on the rollers,
and,
yes.
Yeah, it's strapped down. But that allows us to look at horsepower and torque. And it also allows the instructors, they can put some type of bug in the engine, and then they test drive it. They have to figure out what's wrong with it. They put it back on there until they get it so it works well. So a lot of technology involved today in these programs.
And I also understand that for people that offer CDL training, truck driver training, a lot of it does involve computer use now.
Yes.
The old-fashioned, if that's the term, handwritten logs of what you're doing and how long you've been driving. All that stuff is now electronic, so that there is no dispute at all about how much time you've been putting in and where. Exactly. Because it tracks you, so to speak. Other examples of tech prep that you might have at your institution?
Well, I think one of the things that we try to do is bring together our high school and our college faculty on a regular basis to talk about the curriculum. So what's important is that if we're going to level this curriculum, we need to make sure that what's being taught at the high school and what's being taught at the college is the same thing. So those conversations are absolutely essential. The other thing we do is we try to do some training for the high school and for the college faculty, so they work together in a training situation. And through that, they not only learn that technical skill that they can come back and take to their students, and a lot of times it involves equipment that they can take back as well, but they develop relationships so that they can call each other, talk to each other on a regular basis, and that further cements this pathway that we want to have happen.
So it's possible then for the community, I know that we do this, and I'm certain you do as well. We do offer instruction in a high school using their equipment.
Exactly.
And often they're instructors.
Yes.
But it's under the broader umbrella of the community college.
Sure.
And that actually works very well to the student's advantage.
It does. Yeah. Through College Credit Plus, that's another avenue that students can use to get college credit. And a lot of those classes, as you say, are taught in the high schools or in the career and technical centers. We have a close relationship with the Washington County Career Center. And we have one program where students who want to go into nursing, for example, are able to get all of their general education courses, all their biology, anatomy, and physiology, for example, done while they are at the Washington County Career Center through College Credit Plus, so that when they come to Washington State, they're just completing their nursing courses. So that's another way to develop those pathways to make it as seamless as possible.
That's a very good idea. You know, prerequisites sometimes can be daunting to students, particularly when you're trying to take general education classes.
Exactly.
So anything that would transition that move better, I think, and make it more student-friendly, I think, sounds to the good.
Yes.
So in the time that we have remaining, anything else that we should have discussed that we haven't touched upon yet?
Well, I would just say, too, that in southeastern Ohio, as we're talking about transfer, we recognize that there are a lot of really excellent private institutions. And although those institutions are not involved per se in the transfer module, transfer assurance guides, some have opted in and said, yes, we will recognize the transfer module that the state of Ohio recognizes. But for other institutions, we do a lot of bilateral agreements, as I'm sure
we do.
You do as well, to ensure that that transfer path is a very smooth one, and that even though it's a private institution, that the student is going to not have a lot of loss of credit if they choose to go to that institution, because we've worked that all out in advance for them.
Okay. Would that be the case? Are we describing Belmont College? we saw earlier?
Actually, I was describing, one that we're working on right now is with Marietta College, which is right in Marietta with us. And so we've been working very hard with them. We've always had a long transfer pathway with them. But they're a private liberal arts school, and we're a community college, and so there's always work to be done to make sure that that transfer is as smooth as possible. And it's great to keep that communication going all the time.
Dr. Mark Nutter, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for being with us today.
Very glad to be here.
And for the Voice of Rio Grande, I'm Klein from Rio Grande Community College. Thank you for joining us.